Part of the reason he was unwilling to be generous was because he was hoarding his money, like his faith was in his wealth. That's the problem. Hi everyone, it is Tina with Picture It Personal Finance. I love working with people to help them understand how best they can get their money life in order, both for their personal life and for their business, so that they can pursue the life that they really want. I will be honest with you, much of what I talk about with my clients is to get their money life in order so that they can leave a legacy behind in the future, whether that is just through their own personal investments and leaving an inheritance to their children, or whether that's through building a tremendous business that has a great social impact or delivers a world-class service. That being said, so often when I'm working with my clients, there's this sort of cognitive dissonance that happens. And frankly, it's oftentimes with my Christian clients. And since I am myself a Christian, I like to remind them of a few things. Now, firstly, what the cognitive dissonance is that they want to grow their wealth. They want to build their wealth. And if you didn't see my prior video on wealth building, I will recommend that and I will link it for you. That being said, they have this dissonance that they believe somehow that wealth is bad, or that it makes them greedy, or that it makes them somebody who isn't righteous. And I believe that this happens a lot because we have these euphemisms especially in America today, although I suspect they happen other places, where we say things like, well, I come from humble beginnings. Really what you're saying is that I grew up poor, or maybe lower middle class, and I've gotten myself into a position where I'm a high income earner and I'm doing better for myself and I have a greater lifestyle than I ever dreamed possible when I was a kid. Or maybe I got this because I was able to dream it as a kid, but it certainly was not the reality I grew up with. When we say things like, I had humble beginnings, it associates the idea that poverty or lower middle class is tied to humility. And for many Christians, humility and being humble about who you are and humbling yourself before God, these are really important elements. And so we have this weird thing where we feel like we have to apologize for our success. Like we have to bring ourselves lower and speak down about what we've accomplished in order to retain that humility. And I want to correct that because I know from reading the Bible that this is not true. First and foremost, I want to highlight the patriarchs. God is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. When we look at Abraham, we see a man who left behind a comfortable home life in his, where he was originally from, and then decided to follow God and walk in faith. But that didn't mean that he became poor. As a matter of fact, we know that he ended up being tremendously blessed by God and having tremendous wealth because at one point, he and his nephew Lot, who were traveling together, had to split ways. They didn't split ways because they had a fight. They split ways because their servants who managed their livestock were getting into fights because both of them had grown their livestock so much that there wasn't sufficient grass in the valleys that they were staying in to meet the needs of both caravans. And so because of that, they ended up having to split ways. And as a matter of fact, even in that moment, Abraham let Lot take the first pick. He was a giver in that. He said, you know what, you're right, nephew. There is not space enough here for both of us. You choose the direction that you will go. And Lot looked around and said, it looks pretty darn good over there. So he went that way and Abraham said, it's so, let it be. And he went his other way and then he continued to grow his wealth. We know that he was very wealthy when he went to find a wife for his son Isaac. And of course, Isaac inherited this wealth. We know this because when Abraham sent a servant to find Isaac a wife, he brought 10 camels laden with gifts. And he took those camels up to Abraham's homeland or nearer to where he was from. And he found his extended family, and that was whom he was supposed to pull a wife from. Rebecca was the one who offered not just to offer the man himself water from the well, but also to water the camels. So the camels are kind of like an intrinsic part of the story of the wife finding. I guess I'll call it that for lack of a better word. But it was also an indicator of how much wealth that Abraham had and therefore Isaac would have. And then if we look at Jacob, who became Israel, he went off and worked he ended up going and working for extended family, right? To get away from his brother that he created some real problems with. And when he came back, the way that he tried to repair the problems with Esau, his brother, was by giving a tremendous amount of wealth to his brother. His brother was also blessed by God, so he already had some good stuff going on. But he had caravan, like this huge caravan of animals and households and belongings and servants that walked ahead of him. And then he gave a lot of that wealth to his brother in a way to appease him. So all three of these men, they were flawed like all of us people are, but they were also extremely wealthy, and they were the patriarchs. It was their faith in God that made them so great. It was their faith in God and their reliance in following his will that allowed them to be blessed like that. You know, I think a lot about people talking, oh, well, Jesus came and he came poor and he had humble beginnings. Yes, he did. But I don't believe that was because poverty is better than wealth. I believed it was to highlight the fact that there was this understanding, kind of like the prosperity gospel that existed even back in the times that Jesus was born, right? The reason we know this is because of Job. Job was very well blessed, and it was the belief then that if you were a righteous man, that God was going to bless you, and that if you had problems, if you were struck down, if you had disease, if you were infertile, then those were indicators that you were a sinner and not in right standing with God. So when Job's friends came to him, they kept saying to him, hey, you've obviously screwed up here, repent and do the right thing, and then your stuff will come back to you, your wealth, and you will prosper again. Essentially, it's a form of the prosperity gospel. It even existed way back then, that if you believe and if you do the right things, God's going to bless you with all this stuff. And the story of Job is to highlight that the Lord gives and the Lord takes away, and that he operates at a way of thinking that we can't comprehend. So we can't assume that just because somebody's poor, that Jesus came poor, that means we should all be poor. Jesus did that, I think, to highlight the fact that you don't have to be rich to be blessed. You can be faithful and have a great relationship with God, even if you are not super wealthy. But conversely, you can be faithful and have an amazing relationship with God, even if you're not super poor, right? You can be wealthy and you can have a good relationship with God. I think this is further highlighted by some of the direction that God gives us. So, for example, the parable of the talents. God is telling you, this is how I want you to invest money. And if you don't invest, if you don't use the gifts that I give to you well, then I'll take them away. And then I'll take some more away. To he who has little, he'll have even less. To he who has much, even more will be given to him. It's the idea of if you can figure out how to build wealth, and if you can do it in a good way and increase your generosity. And, I feel like I'm belaboring a point here, but the crux of it is this. There is a simple path to wealth, and that has nothing to do with the condition of your heart. If you're a miser with a little, you'll be a miser with a lot. If you are generous with a little, you'll be generous with a lot. If you have self-doubt with a little, you'll have self-doubt with a lot. It's just a magnifier. There used to be this song when I was in high school. It was Mo Money, Mo Problems. And I remember thinking at the time, like, wow, that makes me not want to be rich, right? Because I don't want all these extra problems. But the truth is, I bet those people had a ton of problems, even when they had very little money. I look at it like, I'm a solutions person. I don't have problems, I have solutions. And I will have a little solutions with my little bit of money, and I'll have a lot of solutions with my lot of money. And I will have solutions for you and for them and for me and for everyone, right? I'm a solution producer. And having a lot of money will allow me to have even more solutions. It will allow me to be able to give generously in the places where I think solutions need to be found. That's how I want you to think about money. I want you to understand that you don't have to be poor to be a good person, and having a lot of money doesn't make you a good person either. But it's a tool, it's a magnifier, it's a way for you to extend who you want to be in the world in an amplified way. Anyway, I don't know who needed to hear this message today, but I have to be honest, this conversation comes up a lot more than I thought it would. And I just want you to know that, especially if you're a Christian, this idea of like the rich man and the poor man, I guess it kind of even highlights the story of like the rich man and Lazarus. It wasn't because he was rich that the rich man ended up in Hades. It was because he was like unwilling to be generous, unwilling to, and personally, I think part of the reason he was unwilling to be generous was because he was hoarding his money, like his faith was in his wealth. That's the problem. Not in having the wealth, but putting your faith in the wealth. Anyway, guys, I'll leave it at that. I know it's a heavy topic, but if you're struggling with this, leave a comment below. Let's have a conversation about it. I'd love to hear what your take is. Otherwise, I hope it was just enlightening for you. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you in the next video.